Good afternoon, everyone, once again for the third session of this Atal's Faculty Development Program on blockchain. So, for this third session, we have with us Dr. Mani Madhukarji. He is a program manager in IBM Research. And today he'll be talking about blockchain for enterprise. So, over to you, sir.
Sure, sir. Thank you. I hope I'm audible and this is visible.
Right, sir. You are audible and your slides are perfectly visible, sir.
Okay. So, are we waiting for anybody or can I get it started?
Sir, we can start now.
Okay, great. So, good afternoon, folks. And I believe you already had a great session, in the morning. I guess 2 sessions you already have. That would have given you enough background and insights into blockchain as a technology just to get you, started. For those of you, for whom blockchain is something new, for those who are already initiated, that's a wonderful thing. And I guess, this is a very relevant topic from a learning point of view, right? Particularly from academic point of view. You can take a snapshot of this page, you can just click a picture or maybe a print a screen for this because I will come back to explain these links. How are these important and how you can leverage these links in your learning of blockchain particularly, and not just blockchain, a lot of other technologies as well. Okay, so I'll come back to that in some course of time. So let me get started before that, right? And I'm not sure, if you would have had the same experience, right? Those of you who have been talking to their students or who have been having conversation with industry folks, would definitely realize that we talk about a lot of new technology, a lot of emerging technologies, right? AI, blockchain, machine learning, everybody is actually talking about this. And there has been a lot of focus around this. So, this is just, towards the humor part of it, right? How much we talk about a particular thing, right? And what people understand from blockchain, right? So different people understand different meaning when we talk about blockchain. Okay, somebody would say, this is typically a cryptocurrency. Somebody would say, no, it's just a linked list. Somebody would say something. So there is a lot of confusion among people about what the technology is, how you can actually use it, what's the exact benefit of using the technology. And I guess in that light, whatever session that you are having today or this week will definitely help you understand a lot of things about blockchain, particularly from startups point of view. So if you again see, right, so if somebody is looking to create a startup and working on a startup, right, and getting money or getting funding, when you talk about that your solution is on blockchain, that makes a lot more sense than compared to any other technology today, right? The investors are looking for these glossy words, these emerging technologies, particularly blockchain in general that we're talking about today. Okay, how much it has created a sort of a vibes in the market, positive vibes in the market, right? But let's come to the serious part of it, right? And let's try and understand. This is a slide which I always talk about in whatever technology session I'm taking. If you see around in last couple of years, like let's say 5-6 years, maybe 8 years, you will find a lot of businesses have evolved big time. They've changed the way businesses have been, they've been doing businesses. Taxis has been there for a long time, right? But Ola's, Ubers changed the way the world traveled, right? Similarly, hotel industry, hospitality has been there for ages. But Airbnb definitely, changed the way traveling or staying had never been earlier, right? So is with Alibaba and other retailers, online retailers, right? You can always see how much impact has online retailing made to the offline stores that we used to have, 10 years, 15 years back when we used to go buy from a typical shop compared to now we just open a Flipkart or a Amazon or a Alibaba to buy something. Now, if you see behind all these transformation, this digital transformation, which has tremendously transformed the businesses over a few years, there have been a few technologies which have, fueled it, which are the reason behind why we see all these Olas, Ubers, or maybe, Airbnb or others like those. If you try to understand, say blockchain is one, then you have AI, ML, you have cloud, you have big data analytics. Mobility really made a big change, right? IoT is changing the way businesses are being done big time, right? So these are the technologies which have really impacted or which have really made a lot of difference in terms of adopting a new business model. And hence, from an academic standpoint, from your point of view, it's really important that you align yourself to one or more than one areas of this, right? So you have to, be it research areas, be it whatever you're teaching to the students, be it whatever, you need to basically, evolve, and you need to integrate one of these technologies into your regular learning things, okay? Yes, and typically we talk about blockchain as an internet of trust, which basically helps in imparting some transparency, traceability, of course, a lot of control. But then, yes, blockchain is basically, again, like a underlying technology which provides you with a lot of value add on top of the exact business use case. Okay. And then, this is just, again, the humor side of what blockchain, and what Internet of Trust is about blockchain, right? Just a few numbers to keep you incited, right? Why it's so much important? You see the market, and then you basically adopt yourself according to the market needs, right? So if you see the latest Gartner's report, if you see other reports, which are there, the technology trends of 2020, 2021, you'll find blockchains in some or the other way there, right? So it's really important from your point of view that you adopt to blockchain and then you make it mainstream, so that there's a lot of skill gap which is already there. There's a lot of knowledge gap which is there. There are a lot of openings available in the market where we don't have headcount to fill them with, right? So that's where, whatever knowledge that you are gonna, impart to your students or you're gonna educate them with will really come in handy. And hence it's so much important that, you basically pick up blockchain. I'll try to, again, show you, give you a few examples like why blockchain, how blockchain, and then we will dig on to something more about blockchains. A simple example is a supply chain, right? Where there are multiple suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, customers, right? All of them. And then there is a lot of information flow which keeps happening back and forth between these, right? Bill of material, invoices, a lot of documentation goes back and forth, right? Which is really, really very complex, which is really, really difficult, right? Typically, you see the automobile, supply chain. Tens of companies are actually, supplying, the components to the manufacturer, right? The manufacturer basically assembles all of those things, and then they may have multiple assembly plants itself, right? There may be a separate engine assembly plant, there may be a separate overall chassis assembly plant, there may be a complete integration, a body shop might be separate, and then so many, so forth, right? So the point is, hundreds of suppliers, tens of plants, and then thousands of car dealers, and then millions of customers, and all together they form a supply chain. So you can just imagine how much complex is this system is, right? And based upon the way we do businesses, right? This is again another example of food industry, right? The food supply chain and all. I'll skip a few slides. Please do not worry about that, right? Yeah. So. I'm not just going to skip all of this. So typically, this is like a conventional business scenario looks like, where there are multiple participants. We just saw in our case like A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever, bank, regulator, auditor, and then they actually are transacting between each other with multiple documentation, right? So at one point in time, a particular transaction may be in different state for different people, right? So participant A may see the same transaction in some state, whereas the same transaction for bank or maybe participant B may be reflecting some other state. Why? Because they have their own isolated vision of truth. They have their own isolated ledgers which track the transaction record based upon what they know about the transaction, right? And hence it is, what happens is, this is really a very inefficient, expensive and vulnerable approach of doing business. Why? It really leads to a lot of conflicts between multiple participants in here, that way. So this is an inherent problem that we see in a typical B2B networks where, and even more the cost of reconciliation between these partners to reconcile, to actually address a particular conflict can be really significant and time consuming, right? So that's where is the challenge. Okay, that's where is the problem that we see from an enterprise point of view. Now, where does blockchain comes into play? Let's try and understand this. This is an important piece in this overall conversation. I believe you might have already have a understanding of this prior, but then let's again try to dig into it. So what we talk from a blockchain's point of view is, we talk about a shared, replicated, permissioned ledger. Please, mind the words there. It's a shared, replicated, permission ledger. By the way, all the conversation that I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about private permission blockchain. I'm not talking about public permissionless blockchains. Okay. So the entire focus from an enterprise point of view is about private permissioned blockchain, right? Where you know the participants in a particular blockchain network. You know whom you are dealing with. Business is not done anonymously, guys, right? When you're doing a business, you know whom you are doing a business with, right? A would know B, B would know C, C would know A, right? It's not that the identity of A, B, C may be anonymous or may be hidden from each other. That's not the way genuine businesses are done. Why I'm saying so is because when you talk about public permissionless blockchain, right? That's where the entire angle of cryptocurrency comes into play. That's where the entire angle of the dark web comes into play, where you can buy, sell anything without disclosing your identity, which is not legal, right? So that's why we're talking about enterprise adoption of blockchain, which is towards private permissioned blockchain. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. So the entire discussion today is on private permission blockchain. Okay, that's one piece. Let's go in further. So what we are saying is we are going and we are replacing with the conventional approach of doing business with a blockchain based approach, in which all the participants have a shared, replicated and a permission ledger. Okay. Now what it means is all the participants, that is A, B, C, D, insurer, regulator, auditor, everybody has the same copy of the ledger. And it is being replicated in real time. So whenever A is writing anything on this ledger, let's say A is writing something on its own copy of the ledger. So the moment A writes that, now when it will write, we'll come to that piece. But the moment A writes to its ledger, the same update is captured and replicated across all the other copies of the ledgers with the B, bank, auditor, regulator, insurer, whosoever has a copy of the ledger. It gets replicated in almost real time. I'm not saying real time, I'm saying almost real time, right? But it is way too better compared to the replication or the updation happens after a few days, right? It's basically happening in almost real time. Let me give you a small example, right? Okay, so I give this example in a lot of my student session. I'll try to do it, give this here as well. No offense meant to anybody. So let's say Kanak sir has a birthday coming up, this Saturday, okay? And, he wants to throw a very lavish party for all of us. And he wants to, book a chartered flight from Jaipur to, let's say, Singapore, right? Where he'll take all of us together for some wonderful, birthday bash. He will put us in a resort for 2 days, 2 nights, 3 nights, and then, he'll give us all the fun there. Okay. Now, the problem is, it's not a problem actually. So, he is basically trying to make all the arrangements, making bookings for the craft, for the resort and all that stuff, right? So typically all those booking will need some money for him. Now, let's say he has earmarked 50 lakh rupees for this birthday only, right? He wants to spend all this 50 lakhs for this birthday. And this 50 lakhs is in form of let's say 45 lakhs is in form of a check, which he is depositing in his bank account, and 5 lakh is ready cash. Normally, when he is making a payment, to anybody, we are assuming that they will all, accept money transfer, right? Whether it's NEFT or RTGS or whatever. But then for that to happen, his account needs to be having enough funds, right? So 50 lakhs is what we said the overall budget is. Now, he has a check for 45 lakhs, which is honestly, looking to invest only for this birthday event. But the problem is, this check has to be deposited in a bank. It has to be encashed and it has to come to his account so that he can spend that, right? So today we are sitting on what is the date? Let's say, okay, today is, let's say it's Monday, let's say, okay. And his, okay. And let's say his birthday is not on a Saturday, but then his birthday is, let's say, on a Wednesday, okay. Now, what happens is, in case he goes to bank today and he deposits the check there, the bank has a typical settlement time of, let's say, 3 days, minimum 3 days. T+3 is what the bank actually takes. In case it's a different city, different branch, or different vendor, different bank, then it may be even more, right? T+X. But conventionally, it is T+3 days, let's say 3 days. Even if he deposits the check today, the remaining 45 lakhs which he needs to make the reservations and payments will only get into his account by, let's say, Thursday, right? That is T+3. But then, the birthday is on Wednesday, and he wants to actually make everything secure so that he can fly all of us there, right? So despite his best of intentions, he may not be able to make the right, reservations, and he may not be able to give us the birthday party that he is actually looking to. Why? Because banks have some X amount of settlement time. Now, just come back to the same discussion. Let's say participant A has given a advance to participant D. Let's A is a buyer and B is a seller. A is looking to buy apples from B orchard, or B has an orchard somewhere in Himachal Pradesh. Okay. Now A has sent 50,000 rupees as an advance to B. Now A's account says, his record says that it is debited and it is being, credited to B's account. But B's account says, because bank will take some amount to settle, right? Some time to settle, let's say one day, a few hours. Now, till the time B's account actually gets credited, B does not know about this transaction, right? And B's account or the B's ledger will say that there is no money received, but then for A, the money is already debited. And hence is the discrepancy in the overall version of truth in the ledger in conventional system, right? But since we're talking about a shared, replicated, and a permission ledger, the moment A's record gets updated that A has submitted the money or A has paid the money, then B's account will, or B's record will actually get updated in real time. I'm not saying the account, I'm saying record. Now, when will A be able to write to the ledger? When certain number of people on this network are able to give consensus to his transaction. Now, who will give consensus to transaction? Now, A is making 50,000 payment to B's account. Naturally, the consensus has to come from the bank. And, bank has to endorse that A has sufficient funds and the funds have been deducted from A's account and they have been updated to B's account, or maybe they are still in transit. So all that updation, that consensus is basically coming from a bank here. And normally the consensus is a multi-party thing, right? So I'm just, for the sake of understanding, we're basically talking about this, right? So anybody, before they can actually write anything to the ledger, they need to obtain something called as consensus. Now, consensus has multiple approaches, multiple mechanisms like proof of stake, proof of work, proof of elapsed time, PBFT, practical Byzantine fault tolerance method, SPFP, simple Byzantine fault tolerance method, and so on and so forth. Depending upon the use case, depending upon the blockchain platform, different consensus approaches are used. And there is even something called as no-ops. So we'll not get into that right now, but the point is consensus is needed. Okay, so when somebody has given a consent, or a certain number of people have given a consent to A can write to the ledger, and then the ledger gets replicated. Second thing, very important thing, is provenance. Whatever any participant is doing on this network, there is an amount of provenance to it, right? Which basically talks about a natural audit trail of everything. Third, whatever anybody does on this ledger, once after getting a consensus, what is updated and recorded on this ledger, it cannot be changed, it cannot be edited, it cannot be deleted. That's what we call as immutability, right? The property of immutability. And fourth and most important is finality. Like at all the points in time, everybody has a same view of truth of the transaction at all points in time, right? So that's the benefit that we derive when we talk about a blockchain-based solution: consensus, provenance, immutability, and finality. Okay. Now you can just imagine in your own heads what use cases you can implement using a blockchain-based system. And I can think of hundreds of such use cases which are still to be implemented, by the way, guys. Okay. So the creativity where you can utilize blockchain depends upon you, right? So typically the requirements of a blockchain for businesses are shared ledger, an identity, an endorsement, that is basically the consensus we're talking about, and fourth, confidentiality. Now see here, despite the entire network participants having the same copy of the ledger, let's say A and B are competitors and they are actually in the same blockchain network, then A would not like, or A would not want B to know or have visibility of certain types of transactions which A is doing. Let's say A and B are both dealerships of Maruti in a same city. Now A may be giving X% of discount or some scheme which A does not want B to know, or maybe it's very client specific. A particular client A is giving some discount, B is giving some other discount, right? And all those records are, let's say, on these ledgers. Now, if that is the case, then A and B, despite having competitors, have the same copy of the ledger. Now, it's not viable from a business point of view that they should access each other's data. It's just not done. Otherwise, business, where is business, right? Where is competition there? It will kill the competition, and that will not happen. Business can't survive like that, right? So that's what it basically talks about. Confidentiality is all about information knowing on need to know basis, right? So despite A having the entire ledger, A can see only whatever A is supposed to be seen, what A can see, right? A cannot see the content which A is not entitled to see. So this ledger is like, let's say 100 pages, but A has access only to, let's say, 40 pages, right? So A can only talk or see or do whatever with those 40 pages, despite having those all, talking about a complete ledger here. Okay, so we already talked about that. In businesses, typically we talk about assets, and assets basically are something of value. It can be digital asset, it can be physical asset. We do something called as a transaction, which basically changes the state of an asset, right? So let's say, Pankaj sir wants to sell his car, right? So when you are actually transferring the car, that's when a transaction is happening, right? So the current owner is, let's say, Dr. Pankaj, and new owner is maybe Dr. Kanak, that's where the transaction is happening. And this transaction is governed by something called as a smart contract or chain code, depending upon various platforms, different names people give it. But smart contracts are something which are like a code, which govern the entire flow in a blockchain-based network, right? Okay, so we already talked about the identity piece, and we talked about the transaction endorsement. Okay, and we also talked about how, using cryptography, we control what is visible to whom, right? So entire transparency in the system. Now, why do we need actually blockchain for that matter, right? So inherent advantages of blockchain, right? Typically provenance, consensus, immutability, and finality, right? That we all just talked about, okay? And this is where blockchain really score upon the conventional RDBMS systems or other record-keeping systems which are there, okay? So that's the reason when somebody asks why blockchain and why not distributed ledger, the answer is this, right? Because distributed ledgers are again as good as blockchain. Then what value add blockchain brings to the table? Because there are a lot of overheads when you talk about blockchain, right? But then what's the value add? Is the trade-off between value adds versus the overheads is viable? That's where you have to take a conscious call about the two. Now, what I would do is I'll take a quick pause here, and I allow you to think of whatever we talked so far. You can put your questions on the chat, and you can, in case it allows you, you can unmute and you can ask questions as well. But I'll really recommend that please take a moment, think about the problems around you, maybe in your college, in your department, in your research, whatever that you're doing, and think, can blockchain be a right technology fit there, right? And if it is, then how would be the implementation like? I'll give you a small example, and then you can maybe think of it, okay? In academia, we often struggle with something called as attendance or with something called as marks, right? Now, what happens is, towards the end of the semester, when we are completing our ledgers means your attendance registers, there is always a shortfall of attendance. Somebody is 60%, 40%, 30%, 20%, and so on and so forth. And then you need to ramp up their attendance, right? It may be evil, a more needed necessity or a necessary evil or whatever, but sometimes it actually really creates a problem as well, right? So a child can come back and say, look, I was present for 9 classes, but then you already have put me only for 7 classes, right? And it is really not possible for you to justify whatever 7, 9, 6, whatever classes you have put that in the ledger, because you do not have a record to that, right? Your ledger is the only record. Now think of if everything like attendance is on a blockchain, or let's say your marks that you give is on a blockchain. They can never ever be changed, altered, deleted, edited, right? So once you mark as yes, and it's yes forever. 100 years even, you can come back and see I was present on a certain date, and it's a blockchain based system, so it cannot be edited. And that's where the trust or the trust in this overall technology which brings to the table, right? So you can think of similar such, and there's so many such use cases which I can talk about, right? So take a minute. If you have any questions so far, what we talked about, feel free to ask those, and you can unmute yourself. You can ask your questions, or somebody can ask the questions if there are anything on the chat which I can't see. Any questions, guys, so far? Any questions so far? Anything you would like to ask, stop, what were we discussed? Kanak sir, do you have anything on the chat?
No, sir.
So are the participants, are they there? Can they unmute and they can talk, or you control those?
I request the participants to raise their hands if there are any questions, or they can mention the questions in the question and answer section. So there was a question that how income will be shared among multiple institutions. I guess this was related to the previous.
Yeah, this seems to be related to the previous use case which Dr. Mukesh might have taken about the academic absorption of blockchain.
No, sir. I think there are any questions till now.
Okay, no questions. Great. So let me go further then. I know there are no more questions. Okay. So IBM has been, at the forefront of creating or working with the leaders for adoption of blockchain, for that matter, and we already have hundreds of implementations across at most industries, be it government, be it trade finance, be it in terms of clearing and settlement, be it identity, distributed energy, insurance, healthcare, in all of these scenarios, there are a lot of live solutions which are right now there where IBM has been a technology partner or a partner in some way, right, and in bringing the entire network up. Couple of examples can be, there is a food trust, IBM Food Trust solution which is out there available, which basically is about providing a more transparent supply chain to the food consumables. Okay. And there are hundreds, thousands of suppliers which are right now onboarded on this. If time permits, I'll try to take you through the details of this system. Okay. There is another solution called TradeLens, which IBM has come together with Maersk, and this is all about container shipment on high seas. How do you manage those containers between when it's in transit between multiple partners, multiple countries? It really helps a lot of, adds a lot of speed and transparency when you talk about cross-border transactions. And it does reduces a lot of cost and increased efficiency through paperless trade, right? So that's another solution. These are just a couple of, generic use cases across different industry segments, be it financial, public sector, retail, insurance, manufacturing, where blockchain is being used. And this is not a complete list. This is just an indicative list. There are a lot many more possible use cases which are listed over here, right? So, but then these are where we have already been leveraging, and we are seeing the benefits of leveraging blockchain as a technology there. Okay. In India, if you talk about, right, there is a lot of adoption on blockchain's point of view. Walmart launched a pilot with one of these shrimp producers called Sam's Club in Andhra. And so they're basically working with Stanley Pearman, and this is just one, right? Then they also have some commercial banks like ICICI, Axis Bank, Yes Bank, who are joining this JP Morgan's Interbank Information Network. If you talk from a fertilizer subsidy point of view, from GNFC, again they're using blockchain in more than one ways. Similarly, there are so many use cases in India for land records. They're using blockchain in the conventional tax management. They're using blockchain in some way. So there are multiple ways where governments, state governments, central government are leveraging blockchain technology, and hence it's really very important. We may not know where it is implemented because it is within the layers. It doesn't come so open to us, right? But underlying, when there is a element of a blockchain technology, you can really have a faith that there's the technology provides for that amount of trust in the overall system, right? That's where the blockchain is really phenomenal and finding a lot of implementation. Now, before I go further, right, another example or another discussion is where should we actually adopt blockchain for? When should we actually adopt blockchain as a technology? Now, whenever there are multiple parties doing businesses with each other, and I'm saying multiple parties, I'm not saying the same party with multiple offices. So let's say, for example, SKIT group may have, let's say, 10 colleges, for example, and you say within these 10 colleges, I want to set up a blockchain network. Then this is not a right use case. When SKIT is forming sort of an educational alliance with, let's say, 5 other colleges, with some other management, with our external to SKIT, yes, it does make sense. Why? Because blockchain as a technology provides you with that amount of trust, which is not inherent in the business. Now, businesses normally thrive, guys, when there is a lot of trust between the communicating parties, right? For example, let's say, if let's say Rashmi has, let's say, 1 CR, 1 crore rupees. Now, if I say that, Rashmi, can you loan me those 1 crores? So, will you give it to me, Rashmi ma'am?
Yes, sir.
So, will you give it to me?
Loan should be given to you, sure, sir.
Are you sure about it?
Not the whole amount.
Not the whole amount. No, I need 1 CR. My point is, will you give it to me just like that? I'm asking, I'll give you,
No, sir.
I'll keep it safe with me.
No, sir.
Why not?
There has to be a security.
I am the security, right? No? The people in your college know me. They are the security. You can ask Pankaj sir, you can ask so many people in your institution. Aren't they
Yes,
security?
sir. The peer consent is required.
Now, the point is you don't trust me, right? Whereas you'll actually go and put this 1 CR in a bank account very quickly, right? Why? Because
Yes.
you trust a bank, right? So that trust is which is really important in any particular business. So unless there is a certain amount of trust, businesses don't thrive. And if there is a technology which provides for that trust, then the business will flourish more. And that's proven fact, guys. Okay. So that goes for everything. If you remember, I was showing you a cartoon towards the start of the slides as well, right? Where trust is really important for everything, even for a relationship, right? So yeah, so that's what. So blockchain provides for that trust, in terms of technology thing. Okay, let me go further, right? And let me tell you what IBM actually does, and then I will. Okay, before I go further, let me quickly go back to the first slide now. I really want you to really check that out. Okay. Now I am accessing all those links which I shared with you on this slide, right? So there is this academic initiative portal, ibm.biz/academic. In case you have browser, mobile, whatever you're using, you can open up this link, and I'm going to tell you how this is going to help you. Okay. Okay. So let me quickly go, and I'll show my browser to you now. So this is the portal, IBM Academic Initiative. Okay. On this platform, you have got learning content across 9 technologies: cloud, data science, security, quantum, software engineering, System Z, power systems, blockchain, and even IBM Watson. So let's say today we are looking to learn blockchain. Okay. So let me click on blockchain to understand what does IBM on this portal provide me. Okay. Let me go down further. So see this, there are a lot of learning resources available on blockchain, including codes, ready-made projects. There is also a book available, which can be downloaded for free, which is all on blockchain. You can also download Hyperledger Fabric, which is open source platform under Linux Foundation from this. There are also courseware available, which you can download, which you can use whether to learn yourself or even to teach your students, for that matter, even that is available. Not just courses. There are also digital badges available, which you can leverage or you can achieve once you complete these courses, right? And the best part of all this is, guys, this is just one, right? So let's say tomorrow I'm interested in learning data science. So let's say, again, if I come to data science tab, see, I have got something called as Data Asset Exchange, which is basically a repository for getting data sets. There are a lot of data sets which I can download for free from here on this Dataset Exchange. So all the people who are doing some research, or who are looking for data sets, they can actually come here and search for data sets. Similarly, you can download a lot of software without any charges from here, right? Like Watson Studio, like iLog, like SPSS Modeler, Cognos Analytics. They're all completely licensed software which are available to you free of cost without any charges, right? Similarly, there are a lot of courseware and again badges associated. Okay, all that you need to do is you need to go and you need to register now with your institutional email ID, guys. Okay. Now, institutional email ID is basically an ID which your college gives to you. So let's say if I am from SKIT, whether I'm a faculty or I'm a student doesn't matter. Let's say if I'm a college and my email ID is t@skit.ac.in. You can see, right, the college name is already enrolled with academic initiative program. I can quickly, enroll like a faculty or a staff or a student. And once I am, I can click here to agree to the terms and conditions. And once I do that, I know I will have access to the academic initiative. And once I have access to academic initiative, I can download all those software, all those books, which I just showed you. So that was one link. Second thing, in case your college has provided you with an institutional email ID, but your college is not registered with the this academic initiative portal. So let's say my college is MIT.org, let's say. So what it will do is it will basically throw me an error saying that your academic institution is not part of academic institution program. So in case you see this challenge, then there is a second link available there. There is a bit.ly link available here, which you can open up, and you can actually you can actually put your college name there, and you can put a request to add your college there. Third thing, in case your college does not provide you with an institutional email ID, right? Let's say for some colleges, they're not still providing with the institutional email ID. The third thing you can do is you can actually request for a Smart Interns email ID to access this. This email ID is available till December 2020 for you to, you can put a request here. We will, within 24 hours, you will get a Smart Interns email ID. Using that, you can again come to Academic Initiative portal and you can download, you can do whatever you want to, you can register and download, right? So this is another approach in case you want to leverage on Academic Initiative content. I hope all these three links are clear. This is another important link, guys. This is Skills Academy. IBM has a very strong course on blockchain, which is for 75 hours program, right? Which is complete hands-on. All the content are basically provided on this. So this is just a flyer of that course. In case you want to know more about this, you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn or some other place, and I'll be more than happy to sort of help you with this. But just to sort of open this link and show it to you. Okay, no, this is not the link. Let me quickly open it up. So there is this course which is available on blockchain, which you can get your hands on. I'll show you it in a while as well. So let me go further. Okay, this is where. So IBM has a Skills Academy courses, which we offer only to academic institutions. And this is pretty recent. It is only 6 months back we launched this in India. And what we actually provide is we provide for digital certificates to both faculty and students, who undertake these courses. And these courses are a combination of lectures plus labs plus group works, which we normally do online. So right now, these Skills Academy courses are available across these 8 technology areas: IoT, cloud, data science, blockchain, AI, cybersecurity, design thinking, and quantum. But it is absolutely, we do absolutely free enablement for the faculty members. It's like a 3-week, 2 hours per day online enablement these days. We are not doing anything in person. And once the faculty actually completes the course, the faculty is given these badges, okay, with the one that you see, instructor badges for blockchain technology. This is how the badges that you get. Once you achieve this badge, you are able to teach yourself, right? You can yourself deliver the blockchain course. What are the skills that you develop? These are the skills that you develop. It basically has a hands-on labs, which we actually take you through. There is also a design thinking badge that you get along with this. So this is the design thinking badge that you get along with this. And once you have trained yourself, then you can go ahead and you can deliver it to your set of students in your own respective colleges. Now, for a student, it comes with a token amount, but then for faculties, this is absolutely free. So, in case anybody wants to get more details about this, they can always come back to me on, either mail or LinkedIn or wherever, and I'll help you with this. Okay, so I'll stop here. I'll go back to my, presentation where I was, and, we'll talk about some more about it. Okay, so this is where I was, right? I was talking about when do we use blockchain as a technology, right? One, when there is a business problem to solve. That's why I said, please have a look around you. What are the problems that you see in your regular day-to-day things, right? One, that's there. Second, there has to be a business network. There has to be multiple, parties in that business network, the problem that you're looking to solve. That's why I give you an example that it has to be different colleges coming together, not the same college or not the branches of same. And third and most important thing, there has to be a requirement for trust in that network, right? That's what I even elaborated. So these are the 3 golden rules for blockchain adoption from not just enterprise, from any point adoptions point of view. Okay, now there are a lot of technologies, guys, which can really fill in for blockchain. So we really need to understand, can blockchain really add value to the overall thing? And once we are able to do that, then we should look for a solution which is built on open standards. That's where the Linux Foundation Hyperledger comes into play, right? Because Linux Foundation, the Hyperledger project is open source and the Linux Foundation. Okay, and IBM offerings are made available on any cloud, IBM Cloud, AWS, Azure, or some local on-prem also it can be deployed. And IBM blockchain platform is based on Hyperledger, right? So the underlying technology is Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, I'll not talk about all of this here. I'll flip to a different slide. Let me share this. Yeah, this is where we are from a blockchain's point of view. Where are we today, right? So this is that important discussion that where are we today from a blockchain point of view, right? So there are multiple implementations, there are multiple technologies like Hyperledger, Corda, Ripple, the Quorum, Stellar, Ethereum, a lot of them there, right? And they are basically used to implement multiple things, right? Permission versus permissionless, for identity, for consensus, for on-chain versus off-chain. A lot of ways to implement it. And there are a lot of communities as well which are looking to adopt to that, right? So I'm not going to touch upon Bitcoin pieces. Yes, Ethereum is another good blockchain platform for app development, right? Distributed app development, which basically also provides for something called as Ether, which is a cryptocurrency which can help in settling mining or transaction fees and all. Then we were talking about Hyperledger, right? It's a general purpose distributed ledger for it doesn't support any currency as of now, because that is not what the intention was. It is completely enterprise focused. It has a pluggable consensus mechanism like PBFT was there, that you have SBFT there, right? Now you use Apache Kafka, right? So there are a lot of them which are available there. The latest version is 2.2. I'll try to talk more about that going further. Completely private ledgers are basically made available depending upon the business requirements on Hyperledger Fabric. It has most number of participants from a business point of view, almost like 260 plus participants, including academic partners. Right? There are a couple of academic universities which are also part of the Hyperledger network there. We call them as associate partners. So if somebody wants to contribute, one of you, like your college or you yourself as a developer, you can also be, a part of the Hyperledger, project there. So right now, we already done with the innovate state. We are at, the second stage is basically standardization of the overall offering. That's where I guess in the previous session, we were talking about interoperability of the blockchain. So right now, that is not the case. These blockchains are not interoperable, though the work is in progress. And then you basically commoditize, all the blockchain solutions that you have there, right? Okay. So let me take a pause here, okay? And if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Any questions so far? Anything you would like to talk about, ask about?
Participants are kindly requested to raise their hands in case they have any queries.
Okay, Ashish sir is saying, please arrange to complete the example of Pankaj sir's part T. Okay, how transactions in blockchain will happen. Okay. Okay. So let's take a use case. Since we are not doing it physically, so I will just call out some names, and you can assume that they're all people representing different parties. Okay. So I'm basically giving you an example of a blockchain network. This blockchain network is basically about let's say so I was talking about Pankaj sir wants to sell his car, his Mercedes, let's say, some Mercedes he has, and let's say, Kanak sir is looking to buy his car, right? So how does this transaction happens on a blockchain network? Now we have got two participants here, but if you see from a blockchain network point of view, let me try to actually take that slide and give you an example here, and then it will be more appropriate to understand this overall scheme of things. Let me just give you a perspective of it. Hold on a second. Okay, here we are. So, let's say participant A is, let's say, Dr. Pankaj. Participant B is, let's say, Mr. Kanak. And then, we have a couple of more people like, me, you, anybody on this network. And we have an RTO, right? Because RTO is a mandatory body which basically has the overall record for the entire vehicles, whatever vehicles are plying on the road. It has a regulator. So regulator is nothing but an RTO here. And then let's say there is an insurer who basically keeps a record of whatever, insurance has been claimed against the vehicle, that Pankaj sir is going to sell. Now, let's go back and try to revisit. How do you buy a vehicle? How do you buy a second-hand car, right? Now, I'm not seeking answers because we can't talk, but then I'm going to narrate it for you. So typically, if I have to buy, or let's say Kanak sir has to buy Pankaj sir's car, what he typically would do is, he will take the car for a test ride, okay? And he will drive the car to the mechanic that he trusts most. Remember the word. He will take it to the mechanic that he trusts most, okay? And what will the mechanic do? The mechanic will basically open the hood. He will start the engine. He will run the engine. He will go around the car inspecting. Then he will, take a small drive, go back and forth, do some, a quick jerks, put some immediate brakes, try to see the noise of the engine, how does the engine sound and all. And after doing all that, some 10 minutes of inspection, he will come back with a expert opinion or expert report. What he'll say is, Mr. Kanak, the engine has been opened, looks like it has been opened, and I'm just throwing it out, guys. So do not take it otherwise. So, the engine has been opened, there has been a piston replacement. It seems like engine is making some noise, or, engine work has already happened, and there can be so many more. But then he has never ever opened the engine to get the real, insight about what is inside that. Nowhere. This is basically, this insights he has derived from whatever knowledge he has over the years of working with the vehicles. But then this is not scientific. This is experiential knowledge. This is not a scientific knowledge, by the way, right? This is experiential knowledge. Now, think about a system, this is hypothetical, but then this is life for Boeing and all of the planes maintenance. When Pankaj sir bought the car for the first time, let's say now this A is the dealership and B is Pankaj sir. So when Pankaj sir bought the car from the dealership, the ownership of the car got transferred into Dr. Pankaj's name. And the same information is updated in the ledger saying that, car number RJ14AB1234 is basically the owner is Dr. Pankaj. Now, from a Hyperledger point of view, there are two data structures in blockchain. One, there is something called as world state, and second, there is something called as blockchain. Okay, the blockchain is something where all the historical transactions get stored, and world state is a data store where the current value of the data asset is stored. Okay, so in our example, the current owner is Dr. Pankaj. So world state would say car number RJ141234, owner Dr. Pankaj. Okay, and whenever Dr. Pankaj is going to take this Mercedes for any inspection or any servicing, each time the car goes into the garage, let's say auditor is a garage, the car maintenance guy. Each time the car goes into the garage, this auditor puts whatever updates or whatever changes he has made to the car, whether he has tuned the engine, whether he's replaced the tires, whether he has changed a piston, whether he has done any service he has done, he's put that on a blockchain. That is the ledger. And this is actually a public facing ledger, which can be encrypted, with some keys, in some way. We can do that later on as well. Just from an understanding point of view, I'm just giving this example. So let's say after certain years of driving this Mercedes, he wants to sell it out. And now Dr. Kanak wants to buy it. Now, how does Dr. Kanak get to know what is the life of the car remaining? How good or how bad is the car now? What he can do is he can simply go to this ledger, and he can ask, maybe the regulator or maybe the owner of the car for the public key to decrypt the information about the status of the car. What is the status of the car? The public ledger, which is now decrypted by the public key of, let's say, by owner, will show the entire details. When was the car bought? What all services has happened? What all changes has happened? Even if there is any accident happened, then how was the insurance claimed? What was the insurance amount? What all things got replaced? All those details are made available there, right? So that's there. Now Mr. Kanak has a better transparent view of the car that he intends to buy. Okay, let's say he is convinced that the car is in good position and he wants to buy. What he does is he now gives some money to Dr. Pankaj, and he actually buys the car. That's how we do, right? And what also happens simultaneously is he basically asks the regulator to change the ownership of the car, right? So let's go back to the data structures that we have in a blockchain: world state and the blockchain. So the current world state will now reflect that Dr. Kanak is the owner of RJ14 ABCD1234, and Dr. Pankaj was previous owner. That historical information gets recorded in a blockchain in the form of a block. Okay, and that block is basically added towards the end of the chain in a manner that it is encrypted using the hash of the previous block. So let's say the blockchain now has 10 blocks, and the entry of Dr. Pankaj, actually is the 11th block in this blockchain. So what will happen is the hash of the 10th block will be used to encrypt this information in 11th block, and so on and so forth, right? So if anybody tries to tamper any block now, they will not be able to. Why? Let's say somebody wants to change the information in block 9. So the moment they even fiddle with one bit in the block, the entire checksum changes. If the hash changes, the chain is entirely nullified from 9 block onwards, right? But since there are multiple instances of the same ledger, you can anyways replicate it from somewhere else where the chain is still integrated, or is it hasn't been compromised yet. Okay, so this is a typical example when we talk about from a blockchain point of view of how assets are changed, hands are changed, data structures are managed there and all. So I'll take a pause here and I look at chat if there are any more questions there.
Yes, sir, we have a question. Actually,
Yeah,
there are 3
yes.
questions. Is it visible to you, sir?
Can the students take benefit of academic initiative program? Yes, they
Yes.
can. All that they need is a institutional email ID to come and register and download whatever they want to, or take those courses or badges. Okay, you're offering blockchain specialization. How I can convince students to opt for this specialization? Well, it's very easy. Look, you have to talk to them about the value add that the blockchain technology provides, the market opportunity there, the market size there, and how there's so many openings which are right now you vacant, right? So that's what is really a convincing factor that why blockchain should be opted for specialization. Okay, somebody is talking about you're talking about big data, is it? Is anybody talking with big data? I guess it's not BOG data. I think it's about working with big data and blockchain, right? So if that is the case, yes, there is a natural integration possible of the both of these as well, right? No, there is no challenge. People can obviously work. A simple example is all these containers that we actually go are in transit these days. I'll take another example. Let's say A is a Apple supplier and B is a buyer of Apple. Let's say B is a Walmart showroom in in Delhi, and A is a apple orchard, somewhere in Himachal. So this guy is sending a container full of apple loads from some place in Himachal to Delhi. Now this apple is actually traveling in a container which is air conditioned container. Okay. Now what happens is the container has a sensor, an IoT sensor, which basically is and on this blockchain network there is an insurer, there is a regulator, there is an auditor and bank as well, right? Because the product has to be insured in transit, there will be a bank which will be doing the settlement for A and B and all that stuff, right? So let's say this IoT sensor which is there in the container, it basically pings back the temperature inside the container on this blockchain network after every 1 hour, so that everybody is assured that the quality of the product is intact during the transit. Let's say the product apple has to be shipped in plus minus 0 degrees centigrade, plus minus 5 on 0 degrees centigrade, right? So that the quality of apple doesn't deteriorate because of temperature changes. So the moment that temperature threshold is breached, the IoT sensor actually relays. So again, there is integration of you talk about unstructured data here. So yeah, there is no challenge as such there. Okay. Okay, I guess Pooja, that answers your questions. Okay. IIT Delhi is of course an academic partner. Every college is just in case the college is not listed. You can always connect with me, or you can actually use the bit.ly link to request access for the college. And within 24-36 hours, you should be able to get the college activated for access to it. Yes, Ashish, banks in India, are actually utilizing blockchain in multiple ways. So there is already a consortium called BankChain, which is led by a private. There is a startup in India based out of Pune, which is leading that initiative, and there were almost like 30 plus banks, not just Indian, global banks, including Deutsche Bank and all those on the blockchain network. And they had identified some 7 low-hanging use cases, including KYC, eKYC, and AML, anti-money laundering, for being implemented on a blockchain basis. And then there are so many Yes Bank. All these banks typically today are, leveraging or playing with blockchain in some other way. Hope that answers the question. Guys, any other question on this before I go any further? Please feel free to unmute and ask your questions here. Any other question? Okay, let there be, in case you have any other question, please put it in the chat, right? Okay, I was talking to you about IBM. This is where I jumped off from the slide and I told, where IBM can help. So IBM has an end-to-end blockchain strategy, right from having a blockchain platform, which is powered by Hyperledger Fabric, to actually entire ecosystem of offering blockchain-based solutions. Okay, so if you go to IBM Cloud, we have a multi-cloud deployment, model which is powered by Kubernetes, based upon OpenShift, and which can be deployed on any cloud, on-prem as well. Then we have an entire offering of developer tools, which are offered on top of it to help in coding, deployment, development, everything. I was talking about Hyperledger, right? The project under Linux Foundation. So this was formed in 2016, and this is the current snapshot. So if you see there are almost like 260 plus companies which are right now partner to this project, including IBM, Intel, JP Morgan, Hitachi, Accenture, Amax, Airbus, Fujitsu, DTCC, and so many more. Not just that, there are a lot of associate and general partners as well, including academic institutions like UCLA, like KBA from India, and Yale, and so many more. Okay, so anybody can be a part to it. This is what I was talking to about. Version 2.2 got released in July this year. And this is really doing well because it being open standards, open governance model based. Let me quickly show you this, right? So if you remember, I was giving you an example about, that car change system, right? The car second-hand car buy system. Another example that I'm going to give you a small demo is about the food trust, the IBM food trust system. Let's say there is this product from Maggi, right, which is basically nothing but potato puree, right, sort of a thing. And so this is already live, as I told you, in multiple countries, including Europe, a few places in China and US as well, right? So I'm not sure if you already had your lunch because I was not fortunate enough to have it. But in case you had your lunch, then you might have eaten multiple things. But then a broad, ingredient in our food is chapati or rice. Now, if anybody asks you that the rice today that you consumed, where was it sourced from? You would have no answer. If anybody asked you, how did the rice travel to your plate from the field where it was grown, right? When was it reared from the ground? When was it actually shipped to the cold storage? At what temperature was it maintained in the cold storage? How long it was actually put in the cold storage? How was it shipped from the cold storage to the, maybe let's say big bazaar that you bought it from? You would have no idea about it. It's completely something which is hidden from you. Entirely it's missing this information. Similarly, if you had a chapati in your lunch, where was the wheat sourced from? When was it actually grinded? What temperature was it made, kept in the cold storage till it was grinded? All of that information is not visible today, right? But when we talk about this food chain system, the produce that you are consuming comes with a barcode, okay? And what we have is the moment you scan the barcode with, one of these barcode scanners, it basically comes with the entire, history, the entire supply chain history of that particular product, give you when was it reared from the ground, when was it, where was it stored, what temperature was it stored, what temperature was it actually, maintained in the cold storage, what is the nutritional value of the product till when it is fit to be consumed. All of that information is actually made available to you the moment you scan the barcode. So that much more transparent is the food trust system that we are talking about, right? Okay. So this is where again, take a pause. Any questions so far, guys? Anything that you want to ask, want to talk, explore anything? Any questions there, ma'am?
Sir, we do have one question over there. Do banks in India agree for consensus?
Yes, of course. Banks in India really realize that this is the most low-hanging technology, and they have already identified few use cases I told you earlier. So multiple banks are already implementing Bajaj Alliance, and sorry, that's basically a settlement. But then Yes Bank actually worked with Bajaj Alliance and Mahindra for doing a settlement for their vendor management system. Almost real time again, as I said, and there are so many other banks which are utilizing. I'll give you a small example. eKYC is the most low-hanging example of blockchain technology implementation that we are going to see very soon. So today, when you actually go to multiple banks like HDFC, Yes Bank, SBI, each time the bank asks you for a documentation, for your identity documentations, right? Be it a car card, be it a PAN card, and all that stuff, right? Now, gradually, all they are actually going to do is they're going to have a shared pool of repository from where they're going to do a eKYC. So each time you want to open a bank account, you don't have to take your documents to individual banks. The bank will do the validation from a common pool of KYC, which is going to be very cheaper compared to the way the current system that banks use, right? So that is one thing. Second is banks are also going to use blockchain for anti-money laundering system, because you know how it happens in India. Many of us will have multiple accounts in different banks with maybe a different name. Let's say Kanak G, Kanak.G, or let's say Kanak Garg, or maybe Kanak G Singh, something like that. With multiple different names, we can have multiple accounts, right? And they may even have multiple supporting documents for that matter, right? So that's where Government of India is really using AI in terms of identifying people who are doing similar things so that they can identify unique set of customers, and hence identify people who are doing money laundering on all these, doing all these things, right? So that sort of systems are already in place. You remember when there was this, demonetization, and then a lot of people made a lot of, updates in the bank with the previous currencies they deposited that way. Do you know, even after 2 years, the Government of India, the Income Tax Department went after people, after analyzing that data, saying that you have been showing income tax for, let's say, 20 lakhs for last 5 years. against that, all of a sudden you have deposited 30 lakhs in a bank. Where does this money come from, right? But then they really needed that much of amount of data and that much amount of, analysis before they can actually go back and you can identify the culprits, right? So, and that requires a lot of time, compared to, because of the reason that we are such a big geography with so much subscriber base, so it's very time consuming. But yes, they are almost, all these emerging technologies today are basically used in multiple government initiatives, state government, central government, multiple ways. I hope that answers the question there.
So we have another question by Ms. Pooja Sapra, and she is asking what happens in blockchain when the ownership changes?
Oh, what happens in blockchain when the ownership changes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me try and show you something. I'm not sure if I have it in this slide. And to make the answer more relevant, just a moment. Let me show you a sample transaction, how the transaction typically happens in a blockchain-based system, okay? And the entire discussion that I'm again doing is from a private permissioned blockchain and only from a Hyperledger point of view, guys. I'm talking about from a Hyperledger Fabric point of view. In case you do not know, let me quickly, bring you up to speed. In a Hyperledger-based system, there are 3 types of nodes: committing peers, endorsing peers, and ordering nodes. Committing peers are the ones which basically which maintain the ledger, right? Which commits the transactions. And endorsing peers are a specialized peers that basically receive a transaction from somebody who wants to do a transaction, and they basically respond to the client by either granting or denying the endorsement. And then there are something called as ordering nodes. Let me quickly give you an infographic just to explain this point of view. So see here, there is this client application, okay, which is connected to endorser nodes E0, E1, E2. Please try to understand this. If you understand this, you will be thorough with the entire process of a blockchain transaction management system. So in Hyperledger Fabric point of view, we have endorsers E0, E1, E2 in this network. And then there are committer nodes P3, P4. And then there is an ordering service, which you see by O, okay? There are smart contracts running for different business processes. For business process A, let's say there is a business process to transfer the ownership of a car, okay, that is running on E0, E1, and E2. There is another business process for checking the current ownership of the car, okay, let's say this. So there is another smart contract running for that B, okay. Similarly, on a committer node, there is a smart contract running again for the same business process A, which is changing the ownership of the car. And then there is another business process called, validating the bank authentication, let's say, which is a smart contract which is running on, which is by name D. I'm just giving you example here. So a client application makes a request that Kanak wants to sell her car, and let's say Prateek wants to buy the car. Okay, so the client application submits to the endorser that the current owner is Kanak, the next owner is Prateek, and there is something called as version number. Okay. This version number is nothing but the value that how much time, the value of this asset has been changed previously. Okay. We call it as record version number. So see this, when this information is basically sent from client application to E0, E1, E2, they do their individual simulation of the transaction based upon the code, based upon the rules which are embedded in the smart contract A. Okay, both E0, all E0, E1, E2 will execute the transaction, simulate the transaction. Okay, and based upon the outcome that they get after simulating, they will have some read-write sets, RW sets. What will be the read-write set? Containing, maybe the current value, the proposed value, and the version number. The version number is, let's say this car is being changing hands for the second time. So prior to, Kanak would have bought this car from somebody else, from let's say Pankaj sir. So when Pankaj sir sold car to Kanak, that was the version number 1, first iteration, then when the value of the asset changed. When Kanak is selling this car to the Prateek, then the version number of the asset is again going to be incremented by 1. The new version number will be 2. Okay. So what this read-write set will be sent from E0, E1, E2 to client application is, we call them as read-write sets, having the read-write values and the version number. Okay. Now, once the client application receives these endorsement certificates from E0, E1, E2, it bundles all these endorsement certificates along with the transaction and sends it to the ordering service. Now, ordering service is typically like a funnel, right? Because in a transaction, there may be hundreds and thousands of transactions coming, right? Just like Kanak is submitting this request for transfer of her car, there may be 1,000 other cars which will be actually, getting hands will be changed or getting sold at the same point. And all those requests are actually coming to the ordering service. Now, ordering service needs to decide the order of the execution, right? I'll come on to something which is very important called double spend, in a moment here. So, but try to understand, ordering service is basically like a funnel where there are multiple incoming entries and there is a outgoing, sort of a controlled outgoing to these to this. So what the ordering service does is, ordering service collects all these transactions and into proposed blocks and basically forward these to the committing peers. So in this case, we have a committing peer P3 and P4, okay? And ordering algorithms, as I said earlier, can be multiple: NoOps, Kafka, PBFT, SBFT, POET, proof of elapsed time, and so many more, right? These are all pluggable consensus mechanisms in Hyperledger Fabric. So once the orderer now runs the same transactions, the same RW sets against the smart contract A for that business process, and if the transaction is still found valid, okay, what is valid? I'll give you a small example. Now, let's say Kanak has submitted a request saying the car to be changed from Kanak's name to Prateek's name, and this is version number 2. At the same time, Kanak is trying to sell the same asset to somebody else. Okay. Now, what will happen is, the moment you submit the transaction to the system, this basically contributes, it's called as a double spend, okay? It's a typical problem in financial segment, and transaction management has to take care of this. So what will happen is, the moment some such transaction comes to the committing peer, so it re-executes that, and it basically validates the RW set which has been sent by the endorsing peer and the version number, and it tries to check whether the version number is still same from the time the endorsement has been made till the time the request has come to the committer peer. Why I'm saying so is, there may be some time gap between when E0 endorsed the transaction versus when the transaction came to P3, maybe through some other route. Okay. So if there is a mismatch in the version number which this committer is checking now, that will be termed as an invalid transaction and will not be updated on the world state. In case the transaction is valid, that means the new owner can be changed to Prateek, and Kanak can be the previous owner. If that is the case, then the world state will be updated, and the world state will be updated like new owner Prateek, previous owner's information that Kanak owned the car RJ14, ABCD, actually goes into blockchain as a block and gets appended towards the end of the chain. And once this updation is happening, all the committing peers actually update the different committing nodes which have a copy of the ledger. So that's why I said almost in real time, all the nodes who have the copy of the ledger get an updated ledger copy. Now everybody in the network knows that the car number RJ14 ABCD1234, the current owner is Prateek, and the car has been sold by Kanak. That information is already updated there. Does it answer your question, Pooja?
Yes, sir.
Okay, by the way, before I go and I move away from this, one point I would like to elaborate is this hat of endorser versus committer, can always change. Now, E0 can be endorser for a business process A, but E0 can also be committer for some business process B. Okay. So a particular node can don multiple hats at the same time. Okay, Ashish, do auditors charge for their service? Look, I guess you are bringing your, this question from your knowledge of cryptocurrencies. So in private permission blockchains, there is no concept of mining or charging for services. Okay, because all the participants in the business network are active players in a business network. So they are all contributing, they all contribute their assets in order to keep this chain up and running, in blockchain up and running. So there is no question of mining, there is no question of payment, and hence the onus of managing this particular blockchain fairly lies completely on the blockchain network participants. Hence, there is no scope of fraud or forgery or that 50% plus we talk about, right? Manipulation. There is no such scope over here. Okay. Any other questions that you see?
Yes, sir. I can see one more question over here by Supriya Lamba, and she is asking, what is your opinion? And the question is the adaptability and execution level of blockchain in India's international trade?
International trade, right? So India is already at the forefront of adopting blockchain, by the way, let me tell you, right? We are one of few countries which have really taken blockchain adoption very seriously. After RBI gave a go ahead to blockchain based systems in that was 2016, I guess. All the banks, all the financial institutions, even the insurance company IRDAI has also mandated the insurance companies to actually bring in blockchain component. We have blockchain adoption in almost every segment today, Supriya. And from an international trade point, if you talk about cross-border payment settlement system is right now already live. There is something called as WinWire. There is a solution called WinWire, which helps in settling cross-border payments, which used to take multiple days, weeks, can now be done in almost real time. And if you see, I'm sure if you're familiar with that if you have a very close friend, a family member somewhere overseas, US, Middle East, somewhere, who normally remit money from there in the local currency, it takes a lot of the settlement fee at both the ends in terms of making that remittance. And normally this is not a transparent process, and it takes a few days, a few times. Compared to that, this WinWire is almost real time, and the transaction fee is very minimal, which will be further reduced when the traffic grows on this WinWire network, right? So that's already very much up and running. Okay.
So another doubt is coming. That is, what about consensus in permission blockchain by Dheeraj, Mr. Dheeraj?
Consensus in permission blockchains, Dheeraj, as I said, there are multiple approaches. So if you see the Hyperledger Sawtooth, it basically uses, there is an algorithm called POET, proof of elapsed time, which is provided by Intel. Then, if you talk about previous versions of Hyperledger Fabric, there was something called as PBFT, Practical Byzantine Fault Tolerance. There is another approach called Simple Byzantine Fault Tolerance. Currently we use Apache Kafka as a messaging queue there. And then, and this is all pluggable, by the way, right? So if something doesn't work, you can always plug in a different mechanism there. And there are so many more, from a crypto point of view, you've got proof of work, proof of stake as well. So it depends upon the use case, where you are implementing. I can give you so many examples of such use cases where there is no need of a consensus mechanism at all. So, there we use something called as no-ops. That is, we don't use any consensus mechanism at all there. Okay. So I hope that answers. Somebody is talking about Hyperledger and educational institutions. A lot of uses, sir, ma'am, academia is so very close to my heart, and I can tell you 10 different use cases where where Hyperledger or maybe any blockchain platform can make a lot of difference the way we run academics today. Okay, right from research to right way management of grants to to collaborating on projects. Though so many places where blockchain can really, why, wherever there is a deficit of trust, okay, blockchain can be an answer there, right? So you have to understand that. And in academia there is a lot of scope for collaboration still. Hope that answers the question. Any other questions, guys?
So one more query is there. Do auditors charge for their services?
No, I answered that. They do not. So I answered that question. Okay.
So no more questions.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, guys, again, I'll stop here because I can keep talking on and on about this. But I'll take you back to a few pointers. The first slide that I was actually showing you, a very important link for you. You should definitely go and leverage this, the Academic Initiative portal. Go register with your institutional email ID. In case you do not have an institutional email ID, I have already provided you a link where you can request for institutional email ID. Right, this is Smart Interns mail ID. This is only valid till December 2020. Let me give you, so you can, till then you can download the software. Till then you can download courses, badges, anything you want to do. After that, you can re-register with a different institutional email ID or whatever your college gives you. In case your college is not listed on the portal, you can use this bit.ly link to get your college added. But before that, before doing this, please go and check. Please go and check on the Academic Initiative portal whether your college has access or not, right? So let's say, if I am from SKIT, and I have got access, let's say if I'm from MNIT, right? Let's say, and let me check test@mnit.ac.in. So the college is listed here, right? So I can directly register. That means I don't have to do anything. I can simply register with whether I'm a faculty or a staff or a student with whatever current degree, nearest thing which matches to me. It may not be exact one. And anything like that, so you can do that. So you can please check before you actually raise a request on this link, the bit.ly link. In case the college doesn't provide you with the institutional email ID, this is an alternative mechanism, a stopgap arrangement that you can leverage. So I'll stop here. It was great talking to you. In case you want more details, you can always connect with me on on LinkedIn. And I'll be more than happy to help you.
Thank you so much, Manisha, for your insightful knowledge and all those concepts and points. And we have seen a lot of doubts and queries from the participants, and you have given a great solution to them. And thank you very much for the session. And I'm thankful on the behalf of Computer Science Department and SKIT family for your support and your knowledge, sir.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure joining.
Thank you, sir. So now we are at the end of the third session. So officially we are signing off for the first day, and tomorrow the session will start at the same time, 9:30 a.m. in the morning. So if you have any query or any doubt, you can write in your official group, WhatsApp group. And thank you for joining us. Thank you once again on behalf of CSIT department, Dr. Mukesh Gupta ji and SKIT family. Thank you.